In the vast landscape of video game history, some games stand out not only for their quality, but also for the impact that they have had on the medium as a whole. In 1987, Hideo Kojima got his big break when Metal Gear was released for the MSX2. The game follows Solid Snake, a rookie foxhound operative sent to infiltrate an enemy base called Outer Heaven, rescue his fellow operative Gray Fox, and destroy a nuclear war machine called Metal Gear. Snake's only allies are his commanding officer Big Boss and some contacts from the Resistance. Otherwise, Snake is all alone behind enemy lines, tasked with completing the mission with limited resources and an army of enemies lurking around every corner. But there's more to this situation than meets the eye, and things are not what they seem. Journey with me as I look back at the humble beginnings of tactical espionage action. In the world of 80s gaming, it was all about action. Players were accustomed to games where the objective was clear: kill stuff, collect loot, and reach the goal. Initially, Metal Gear was meant to be just another action game, but the MSX2 had technical limitations that made this impractical. Kojima decided to flip convention on its head. Where most games were all about going in guns blazing, in this game, avoiding conflict is the best option. Snake's resources, especially early on, can't defend him from the onslaught of the large group of enemies if he gets caught. The early game can be pretty aggravating since you don't have a lot of health or equipment, but later on you'll have suppressed weapons and things will go a lot smoother. The stealth mechanics are pretty bare bones. Snake can run around and attack, and enemies only detect him if they see him or if they hear him fire a shot. Otherwise, they have no idea you're there, and you can't really interact much with enemies other than avoiding them or killing them. Getting caught is pretty rough, but until you do, these guys are totally inept. Maybe that's why Foxhound sent a rookie. They figured the guards were so hopeless the new guy could deal with them. And how exactly did Gray Fox get captured by these goobers anyway? The dogs are a little annoying. After a moment, they automatically start chasing you, even from screen to screen. You'll want to shoot them down ASAP. Nothing personal, Pooch. That's not all you'll want to avoid. Some screens have surveillance cameras that can be avoided by hiding under a cardboard box. Others have infrared lasers. You can only see these with infrared goggles or cigarettes. Yes, Snake has cigarettes in his inventory, and he can actually use them. Surgeon General's warning: cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health. Of course, there's also bosses along the way. Somebody at Outer Heaven has to be halfway threatening. If only it was these guys. Most of these are not that dangerous. They have simple patterns that are easy to avoid. The lowlight of these is the Hind D. Wow, who knew all it took to defeat a Hind D in battle was to stand perfectly still? It can't hit you, and it never flies around despite being, a helicopter. You don't even fight Metal Gear, you just blow up its legs with plastic explosives while cameras shoot lasers at you. Even the final boss is pretty easy. How is Outer Heaven even remotely a threat? But to be fair, this is the first one, and they were still figuring things out. It was the 80s after all. It's hard to appreciate just how mind-blowing these ideas were at the time. But I still had fun with it, and I enjoyed it for what it is, and when it comes to the action, it's only up from here. Snake is infiltrating Outer Heaven in part to rescue his comrade Gray Fox, but there's other hostages to save as well. By rescuing them, Snake's class will eventually go up, increasing his health, max ammo capacity, and the max amount of rations he can carry. These hostages sometimes give hints, although it's really easy to accidentally skip them and they'll never play again. Still, at least they tried. Metal Gear's level design draws parallels to the emerging Metroidvania genre. Snake has to explore 3 buildings, collecting various items in order to open up new areas. It's often non-linear and requires a lot of backtracking. If you hate backtracking, you might hate this, but it doesn't really bother me that much. I like the fun of trying to find new stuff to open whenever I get new items. What bothers me isn't what you're doing, but the experience of doing it. Snake has an inventory. As the game proceeds, you'll collect a bunch of stuff, so you're going to constantly be going in and out of the inventory. I'm not necessarily turned off by menus. I like RPGs, and those are 90% menus. But Snake has 9 different keycards, and they don't stack. Since they only open doors of the same level, and doors don't show you what level they are, after a while every new door becomes a tedious guessing game as you try to cycle through every single keycard and finally get the damn door to open. It's ridiculously cluttered and disorganized, and there's a lot of items like the antidote and the parachute that are only going to be useful once and just waste space most of the time. Then there's the gas mask. Ah, geez. There's a bunch of gas rooms that you'll need to use the mask in. Makes sense. But every single one of them is locked. You can look at the screen ahead of your current location with the binoculars, but if you don't obsessively do this, there's a good chance you'll end up taking a couple of ticks of damage when inevitably you wander into a gas room unprepared. Still, that was something you could have prevented with planning or foresight, so fair enough. But to leave a gas room, you have to unequip the mask because the door needs a keycard. And God forbid you equip the wrong one. Even if you do everything right, you'll take a couple of ticks of damage before you can leave.
What are they thinking?
It's not that much damage except right at the beginning of the game, but it's cheap. You didn't get punished for not playing the game correctly, you got punished because of bad game design you couldn't do anything about. Speaking of stupid stuff, these pitfalls are annoying. You walk into a room and suddenly a pit opens up, completely taking you by surprise and killing you cheaply. I like games that punish me for failing, but I can't see the future, give me a break. This being an 80s game based around exploring, sometimes things get a little cryptic. In addition to the occasional hostage hints, you have a radio with a few contacts. Unfortunately, these aren't very helpful a lot of the time. Half the time, Big Boss is forgetting to tell you about stuff. It's almost like he wants you to fail or something. One thing that really aggravates me is that he suggests contacting the Resistance, but he never tells you their frequencies. I got Diane and Jennifer's frequency, but there's another one named Schneider, and the game never gave me his frequency until finally he called me in the basement of Building 2. I want to point out that for this review, I played the Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence version of this, and I checked the manual for this version and for the HD collection, and there's nothing about this game in either one, aside from Subsistence acknowledging that, hey, this game is in it. Technical limitations meant that 80s games couldn't really convey info very well, so the instruction manuals often filled in the blanks. But it seems that when it comes to the re-release, Konami just didn't care. It's like the one that started this whole cash cow for them is nothing but an afterthought. The inconsistent helpfulness of the radio and the easily missed hostage hints mean this game isn't always the most clear on where to go, and it's easy to miss stuff. But you can usually figure a lot of it out on your own anyway. That said, there are some tedious bits. In Building 2, there are 2 elevators. The twist is one only goes down and the other only goes up, so backtracking through it is a bit of a pain. The other big thing that annoys me is that there are trucks throughout the game. Some will immediately move when you enter them, causing you to be transported to some other part of the map. This is useful for fast travel if you already know about it, but it's a big waste of your time if you don't. There's no way to know which trucks do this, so it's always a guessing game. If they would have just labeled them, this wouldn't even be a problem. One thing I think is neat is how you can blow up walls to reveal hidden rooms or open up other parts of a screen. You know, like The Legend of Zelda. I like how this game is more generous with explosives. Actually, it's generous in general since rooms with loot respawn the loot when you return, so take advantage of that. Even if it wasn't generous with the explosives, I love how you can punch walls and you'll see an indicator if that wall can be blown up. It's still a bit silly since you'll just end up punching every wall you see to see if you can blow it up, but in my opinion that's better than how in Zelda 1 there's no way to determine what walls can be destroyed except by trying to bomb all of them. And you can't just bomb all of them because it's stingy about bombs. Zelda 1 cryptic crap, eat your heart out. And now someone somewhere is angrily typing a comment. Moving on. Solid Snake is sent to infiltrate Outer Heaven, with only the guidance of his commanding officer Big Boss and some members of the Resistance. His objectives? Rescue his fellow operative Gray Fox and destroy Metal Gear, a bipedal superweapon with nuclear capabilities. To destroy Metal Gear, Snake needs to rescue Dr. Madnar, who has been forced to continue working on Metal Gear, and get his help. But he won't help unless Snake rescues his daughter Ellen first. After Snake does this, Madnar tells him the way to destroy Metal Gear, and off we go. As Snake gets closer to Metal Gear, Big Boss starts acting really suspicious. Turn off my PlayStation 2? Well, okay then. Damn it. As this is all going on, Schneider eventually calls Snake, But before he gets a chance to reveal the leader of Outer Heaven, he's taken out. Alas, Schneider, we hardly knew ye. No, seriously, he was here for like 5 minutes, I don't care about him. It turns out that Outer Heaven's leader was... Big Boss? Gasp. After destroying Metal Gear, which is just sitting there, the self-destruct sequence is activated, and it's time for Snake's epic final battle with Big Boss. So anyway, Snake wins, and that's that. Snake escapes victorious, and the credits roll. But uh-oh, Big Boss isn't dead. It's not over yet. Well, this game is. This story is pretty basic and bare bones, but in the 80s most games boiled down to save the princess or whatever. Attempting to have a story with intrigue and plot twists was pretty ambitious for the time, and it's only up from here, but boy, it's pretty clear that this was the first try. All the characters have the depth of a cardboard cutout. As for Big Boss, I've been playing these games for so long that I just kinda take it for granted that Big Boss is a villain because of series lore, but even a newcomer is probably going to notice he's acting pretty fishy. No competent commanding officer would forget to tell you about stuff like surveillance cameras or poison gas that will kill you. And later on, he straight up just starts giving you bad advice to try to get you killed. It's not very subtle. Still, it's a good first try, and Kojima would continue to push boundaries with later stories. So there it is. The very first Metal Gear. It was a fun ride, even if its mechanics needed a little bit of tweaking to make them smoother, and the story had the depth of a mud puddle. I enjoyed getting to look at the humble origins of this beloved franchise. With each installment after this, the series would continue to try new things and innovate, further pushing boundaries and helping to expand what the gaming medium could do. With Metal Gear Solid Delta, and with this game being re-released in Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1, this is a hell of a time for Metal Gear. Whether you're diving into this epic saga for the first time, or coming back home to revisit old friends and foes. So until next time, happy sneaking.